Okay, here's the Unit 3 test review. I'm going to break this up into probably 2 videos, and Coach Hawkins is also making one, but I'm putting this in the extra help folder. Okay, so let's look at number 1. Brayden and Corbin are both saving money for their summer vacations. They both began saving at the same time. Brayden started with $85.55 and adds $19.35 to his savings every month. Corbin did not have a starting amount, but adds $51.20 to his savings every month. Which equation can be used to determine how many months, blah, blah, blah. Okay. I don't need to read every single word in here, but I do need to know that there are 2 people, 2 situations. I'm going to highlight. This situation is Brayden, and then we've got Corbin here, just so I can keep those separate. So the first thing I want to look for is to make sure the numbers are matched up correctly, like they're on the right sides of the equal signs. And so if Brayden has $85.55 and $19.35, I want to make sure they're on the same sides. So that's the first thing I'm looking for before I even look at variables or anything like that. So I should have 85 and 19. So A has 85 and 19. That's good. 85, 19. C has 85 and 51. That's not going to work. And D has 51 and 85. That's also not going to work. Okay, so now I want to go back and see where my variables should go. So if I have started with $85.55 and I add $19.35 every month, that's going to have my variable because it already told me that months, M, was our variable. So $19.35 M, and it looks like only A has that option for us. So sometimes you don't even have to look at all the numbers. Sometimes I'm just going to kind of skim over. Charged a flat fee of $2.95 plus 32 cents per mile driven. Econocar, this other option, charges a flat fee of $4.08 plus 16 cents per mile. We're looking to determine the distance in miles, M, so that's my variable. So that needs to go with words that talk about the miles. That would make the total charges of both auto rental agencies equal. So the first thing I'm going to do, I want to make sure that these 2 numbers are on the same side. So I need $2.95 and .32 because since we're talking about cents, I really need to be looking for something like this because it's not going to label it cents in the problem. So you need to find the actual decimal. Okay, so $2.95 and 32 cents should be together. So A has 408 and 32 cents, so that's not going to work. B has 2.95 and 32. C has 408 and 32, so that one's not going to work. And really, without even looking at the second problem, 2.95 and 32 is correct. Those go together. But B says 32M and D says 0.32M. So it's going to have to be D since we're talking about cents and not whole dollar amounts. Number 3, I think this is, it says 42 plus 14.3C is greater than or equal to 24.75C minus 102. So when I'm looking through these, the first thing I'm going to look for is to make sure that the numbers are together. So I'm going to make sure 42 and 14 are together. So A says Bill and Tim went to a comic store and purchased comic books. Bill purchased comic books for $24.75 each and then spent $42 on a comic book portfolio. Okay, so we've got 42 and 24. Those are on opposite sides of the inequality sign, so it cannot be A. For B, Bill and Ted went to a comic store and purchased some comic books. Bill purchased C comic books for $14.30 each and then spent $42 on a comic book portfolio. And then Tim, so the other side of the equal sign, purchased a vintage comic book from the store for $102, and then purchased C, more comic books for $24.75 each. How many comic books would each boy purchase? Okay. I'm going to put a star because that one might work. The numbers lined up. C, Bill and Tim went to a comic store and purchased some comic books. Bill purchased C comic books for $24.75 and then spent $42. So again, wrong numbers matched up together. So it cannot be C. And then D, Bill and Tim went to a comic store and purchased some comic books. Bill purchased them for $14.30 each and then spent $42 on a comic book portfolio. Tim sold, that's going to be a keyword, sold a vintage comic book to the store for $102 and then purchased more comic books for $24.75 each. So the numbers line up, the variables are in the right spot. There's just literally one word that's different. And on B, it says that he purchased a vintage comic book from the store for $102. So when we think about purchasing, or when it's talking about a scenario where you bought this, then you bought something else, that means that they're adding. So they're adding those together, so there's a total. So the difference between B and D is on D, it says Tim sold. So he got rid of his comic books for $102. So D is going to be our answer because in the problem we have minus $102, not plus $102. So minus $102 suggests you're getting rid of something. So in this case, it would be the $102. So it's D. Number 4, which value of x makes this equation true? A lot of kids had trouble with this just because of the wording of the question, but all you're doing is solving it. That's all it wants to know. It wants to know what is x. And so the only way to do that is to just go through and you solve the problem. So I'm going to box in all of my numbers and all of my variables with the signs that come right before it. I'm going to move this negative 34 first, because I don't want to have too many negatives, so I'm going to move it by doing the opposite, which would be plus. So plus 34. I cancel it out on the right side, combine it over here with the number. So 34 plus 2 is 36. Now I'm going to bring down everything else, and it's a positive 36. That's important. Now I'm going to bring down everything else that I have. So 8x, and then the only thing left over here is negative x. And you can put a 1 in front of that x just to remind yourself that there is a number there. Okay, and now we have a two-step equation. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to box in everything I have with the sign that comes right before it. And there's only one thing that I can move. I can't move this. I can't move the negative 1x because it's by itself. We can't ever move anything that's by itself. I can't move the 36 because it would have to combine. We would have to be moving it over here. And since it doesn't have an x on it, I can't move that. So the only thing I can move is this 8x, this positive 8x. So to move it, I've got to do the opposite, which would be minus 8x. So negative 1 minus 8 is negative 9x. And then I'm going to bring down this 36. Now your last step is to divide 36, or divide by negative 9 on both sides. So 36 divided by negative 9 is negative 4. Caleb, Brittany, Faith, Megan solved the equation below in their math test. So let's go ahead and solve it, and then, because it tells us all of these people had all of these answers. One option you could do is you could look at all of these numbers that they gave you. They only gave you 4, and you could plug those in to your equation where x is. So this would be like 19 times negative 10 minus 4 equals 17 times negative 10 plus 16. And if you do that and you get the same number on each side, then that would be your answer. So that's always a way to do it, especially since it's multiple choice. I'm going to go through, because it seems like from what I've seen, everybody's pretty good at solving these. And so I'm just going to go through and solve it. But however you find your answer is totally fine. Okay. Oh, wait. Oh, I forgot an X. Okay. Hello. I was like, what's weird? That's weird. Okay. So I'm going to move one of my numbers first. I'm going to move the -4, so I don't have as many negatives. So I'm going to move it by adding it. +4, +4. Cancels out on this side. 16 plus 4 is a +20. And then I'm going to bring down 17x, equal sign, and I'm going to bring down 19x. Okay, and then I'm going to go through again, and I'm going to box in all my numbers with the signs that come directly in front. If it helps you, you can always go through if they're positive, but they don't have a sign, to put a little sign for yourself. And the only thing I can move now, there's a two-step equation, is the 17x, because it'll combine with 19x, and it's not by itself, so I can move it. So I'm going to subtract 17x from both sides, so it cancels out here. 19x minus 17x is 2x. Bring down what's left on the other side, and then your last step is always to divide. So 20 divided by 2 is 10, +10. Same thing on these. What value of x makes the equation true? That just means solve. So I'm going to box in every number, including the sign that comes right before it. And I want to move this -39. I'm going to add it. So add 39. Let's see. 25 plus 39 is 64, +64. I'm going to bring down everything else that I have. The only thing left over here is 9x. So now I've got 5x plus 64 equals 9x. And the only thing I can move is the 5. And make sure you're moving it across the equal sign. I've seen some kids try to combine it with what's already here. We don't want to do that. It's a balancing act. We want to keep something on both sides always. So I'm going to bring down what's left. 9x minus 5x is 4x. And then we get 16. Okay, next one, same thing. We're just solving. 8x minus 3 equals 11x plus. Okay, now number 7 is getting into the interest problems. Abby's mother is planning to borrow $31,000 to remodel the boutique she owns. She contacted several loan companies, and she is comparing two different options. Company 1 is offers an interest rate of 7.65%. Company 2, their rate is 9.2%. Both loan options involve simple interest, okay, so that tells us what formula to use, and must be repaid in exactly 5 years, and there's our time. How much more will Abby's mother pay in interest if she chooses? Okay, so how much more means we're going to be subtracting. So I have principals, I have my rates, so I'm going to solve it twice because there's two different rates, so I have to do the same problem. And this is my formula for simple interest. So I'm going to have to do this formula twice. I'm going to plug in the numbers they gave me. So 31,000 was my principal. Times the rate. I'm going to do the first one, and I'm going to divide it by 100. So 7.65 divided by 100 is 0.0765 times 5. So 31,000 times 0.0765 times 5 gives me 11,857.5. And I'm going to do the same thing but with the different rate. So 31,000 times 9.2 divided by 100, which is 0.092, times the years. So 31,000 times 0.092 times 5 14,260. Okay, so these are my two interests, and I need to subtract them. So let's do minus 11,857.5. And that gives me 2402.